Today we're going to talk about transformations of functions. Okay. Transformation of functions. Basically, we're going to transform or move the graphs of functions using transformations. We're going to start by talking about a quadratic function and see how we can make some changes to the graph of function by doing a little bit of algebra. Suppose you have a quadratic function. The general form of a quadratic function is f of x equals to ax squared plus bx plus c. For example, suppose I give you f of x equals to x to the second power. The degree of this function is 2. And as you remember, this graph has a form like this. You have a parabola which opens up. Why is that? Because the coefficient of x squared is 1. So quadratic functions are parent functions. Well, we know how to graph this function, but my question is, if I add or subtract a number from x, let us change x. So we're going to see how changes in x will change the graph of your function. For example, if I add 1 to x, I get x plus 1 to the second power. If I subtract 1 from x, I get a new function. But what's the relation between the graph of x squared, x plus 1 squared, and x minus 1 squared? Let's take a look at Desmos together. So here we are in Desmos. We are graphing y equals to x squared. This is the graph of x squared. Then I'm going to add and subtract some numbers from my x and see what happens to the graph. So y is equal to x minus 1 to the second power. Take a look at this. Subtracting 1 from x shifted the graph 1 unit to the right-hand side. Subtracting 1 from x shifted the graph 1 unit to the right-hand side. What if I add a number to my x? Y is equal to x plus 1 to the second power. Wow, this is the green function. This is the green graph. I added 1 to my x, and it shifted the graph 1 unit to the left-hand side. So subtracting a unit from x, move the graph that unit to the right, and adding some units to your x, shift the graph that many units to the left-hand side. So as we saw, if we add or subtract a number, we have a shift to the left, to the right. So in this scenario, we're going to have horizontal shift. If you add a number to your x, then you have a horizontal shift to the left. If you subtract a number from your x, you get a horizontal shift to the right. Why is that? Because of your intercept. Why? Because of the intercept. X-intercept. If I ask you to find the x-intercept of this function, you're going to say that, hey, x-intercept happens when y is 0. So when y is equal to 0, it means that x plus 1 to the second power is equal to 0. But this quantity to second power is 0. It means that x plus 1 must be 0, or x must be negative 1. That's why you have a shift to the left. For this scenario, you have a shift to the right because of x-intercept. When you set your y equal to 0, it means that you take the function, which is x minus 1 to the second power equal to 0. X minus 1 to the power 2 is 0. It means that this quantity is 0. So x minus 1 must be 0, or x is 1. That's why you have a shift to the right-hand side. For this function, you have your x-intercept at the origin. When y is equal to 0, x squared is 0. It means that x becomes 0. So this function hits x-axis at the origin. This function hits x-axis at negative 1, and this function hits x-axis at positive 1. So we've done the change in x values. Now I expect you to ask, what if I change my y values? Let us change y or the function itself. What do I mean by that? Well, here I have f of x equals to x squared. F of x plus a numerical value like 1 is x squared plus 1. I'm going to call this function, for example, function g. I can call it any function that I like. So g of x is x squared plus 1. Well, what if I subtract a number from my y? F of x minus 1. It means that I have my x squared, which is my f, and I'm subtracting 1 from it. Let's call this one function h, x squared minus 1. Now let us use Desmos, see what is the behavior of the function when I change the y values. So these are the transformation in x. We're going to see transformations for y. So now I have x squared, and I'm adding 1 to my y value. Take a look at this function. The function just jumped up. Adding 1 to y value caused a vertical shift. It jumped 1 unit upward. What if I subtract 1 from that function? Well, as you can see, you have a shift downward. You have a vertical shift downward. So change in x, and change in y. These are the changes that we have. So we can summarize this. If we add a unit, positive number, to the function, we have a vertical shift upward. Vertical shift upward. If I subtract a number from the function, I have the vertical shift downward.